Hey, it's Mazzy, and welcome back. 6 months into the year now, and there's been a lot of great new music. I love checking out new records, new sounds, new music, various genres. And uh, I want to talk about possibly the best album of the year so far, and that the best album of the year has a cowboy hat on the cover. And I think this video may surprise you if you get through it all. And I advise you, or I suggest, not advise, but I suggest that you watch it through to the end if you want to know what my favorite album is of the year so far with a cowboy hat in the cover. Now, since people ask occasionally, I have a pretty nice hat collection. I don't wear this one a lot, but this is one of my three Stetson hats. Stetson hats are not just cowboy hats, but they're the Texas company, one of the great American hat makers, obviously, and people know them of their wonderful cowboy hats for men and women. But they also they made a series of traditional fedoras in the 1940s and 1950s, and they adapt with the time. But there's certain classics that stick, that stay, and this is. And I'm not a shill for the company. Although, Stetson, if you're watching, I would be happy to feature your hats in trade for some promotional consideration. This is the Stetson Stratoliner. And the Stratoliner, in fact, it has this beautiful little airplane there. This was made for when business people and travelers wore suits and hats, and it was kind of the hat of the upscale traveler in the late 1940s into the 1950s. So that is my little diversion before we talk about the music. A few months ago, I showed this record by Beyonce, Act Two. I love this record. I think this record sounds fabulous. This is what was promoted in a way and talked about as Beyonce's country album. Beyonce goes country. Now, I don't totally buy that this is a country album. There are some obviously country influences, country songs, country artists. It's done in a way partially as a radio show where there are guests who come in and do sort of the little bridge introduction. Dolly Parton's here. She does a cover of Jolene, which is amazing, with these other great female sort of African black country artists, crossover artists that she brings on the album. And it's a wonderful sounding record. I talked about it at the time of Willie Nelson, who's also one of the people in there. I talk about her covering of the Beatles' Blackbird as a folk song, very much like the original, where she actually uses, with the Beatles' permission and Paul McCartney's permission, the actual Beatle guitar track. And she does this great vocal thing. Some criticize it as Beyonce Beatle karaoke, and I disagree with that wholeheartedly. It's another version and a modern version that opens the Beatles' White Album and Paul McCartney's songwriting to an audience that may not know it. Yes, there are people and generations that don't follow the Beatles today. They don't know much. So if you listen to this and you go and check out the White Album or Paul's songs, I think that's always a good thing. Any kind of music that introduces you to other music, some will say it's appropriation, but that's what music's about, of taking different genres, uh, music from the world and making it your own and mixing and fusing it together. And that's what my thing is. This, again, is excellent. Now, going back, 4 or 5 months ago when I initially reviewed this album, I did have a problem with a couple of things. First of all, this, a friggin' QR code. Now, Beyonce, like a lot of modern artists, a lot of hip hop artists, a lot of pop artists, a lot of times their records are made by committee. There are literally dozens or hundreds, maybe even thousands of people working on it, from tape operators to musicians to editors to mixers, remixers, remixers, putting it together. So it's almost like a major, like a Marvel motion picture or a major motion picture. And some may not like that. It's not the purity to some of making a record. When the Beatles were in the studio, the White Album, it was the four of them. And then you bring in a string section, you bring in Eric Clapton on While My Guitar Gently Weeps. You'd bring on, and Let It Be, you'd bring in Billy Preston on organ and a few things. But it was essentially them, the engineer, the producer, and maybe one or two other people are around there, but that's about it. Now we're talking a cast of thousands, literally, in some cases. Now, it doesn't really matter to me as long as you like the outcome. And this is one of the best albums of the year. But I talked about this last year. Okay, no poly sleeves. Oh my God, heads are going to explode. But that was it. There were no credits, no songs, information. I didn't know anything unless I went to the QR code. How lazy is that? Especially an artist as successful as Beyonce. And this record sold a ton of records. So come on, put a book in, put something in. I thought that was kind of cheap. I didn't like that at all. Now, also, there were, I think, 5 or 6 songs that were on streaming and maybe on the compact disc that weren't on here. So this wasn't even complete. Now, cut forward to 6 months later, 5 months later, and we get Cowboy Hat. Love it. I love this cover. I love this cover too. I think for the album, this is the better cover. Look at this. You got a box. Now, what's interesting about this makes up for all the failures of the first album. It gathers together the extra tracks, or the tracks that should have been on the album to begin with, and it's still a double record. But look what you get. You get a poster, Cowboy Hat. I'm not going to open it all here for you. Go buy the record. It's amazing. You get the book, Cowboy Hat, one of the best records of the year with a cowboy hat on it. You get a beautiful photo essay. I mean, obviously, she's an attractive woman, and she's a great singer. This record sounds amazing. I think on side 4, towards the end, it falls in a little bit. But remember what I said about that QR code? I never went to the QR code. I never looked at the contributors, but look at this. Contributors and publishing details and details of all the songs. Look at this. Is it art by committee? Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is kind of interesting that now we have this beautiful book, to me, that should have come out like this in the first place. This is an excellent album. This is one of the best albums of 2024. Look familiar? A little bit of a Dolly Parton thing. Remember that album? I forgot what album cover that was. Was it the 9 to 5, her pop album? I think it was the album by Dolly Parton from the late 70s. Texas Hold'em. Now, again, there are essence of country music in here with pop and hip hop, of course. Just really good vocals. It's a fun album, and I play this record a lot. There's even banjo on it. So banjo on a Beyonce record. Hey, we had banjo on Beck records, so why can't we have banjo on Beyonce records? One of the best records of 2024. But I'm giving away the first record I have to my friend. She loves Beyonce. She does not have it. So I'm going to give her the initial record without the booklet, less tracks, and I'm keeping the new version. I'm getting rid of this, and I'm keeping this. One of the greatest albums of 2024 with a cowboy hat on it. But you know something? I hope you stayed till the end of this video, because it's not over yet. The best album of the year is Bright Future by Adrian Lenker. This is her, I believe, sixth album. She is a member of Big Thief, the kind of rootsy country rock avant experimental group. And I didn't have a lot of her or any of her solo records up until this record. Now I'm going back and picking up. This is one of the best records I've heard in years, but it takes time. I love when a record takes time. Um, the best records in my collection, right away you're thinking, what is that? It's unusual. Now, it's folk music. It's not even folk rock music. It's a little, is it freak folk, psychedelic? No, it's not. But it's an unusual form of folk country music. It's recorded to tape in a room, in a house, I believe, with just piano, guitar, violin, and voice. Recorded around a single microphone with the musicians sitting around, and it is a stunner. It is, this breaks my heart and brings me joy. I mean, there's an emotional thing I've had about this album. The more I play it, the more I love it. Now, when you first put it on, the opening track here is called Real House. And Real House almost sounds like, literally, you walk into this open room and you hear the ambient of the sound, the noise of moving around, maybe equipment, and not great. And you hear this piano, and the piano almost sounds like it's ghosting from another dimension, from another place. It doesn't sound like it's a really great recording. It seems ethereal, and then her beautiful voice comes in, and a little bit of a violin thing, a violin and the piano. And the song there, Real House, is about her growing up and singing this to her mother and the things she loved about, playing in the yard and playing in nature and being in the house and being scared the first time she saw a scary movie, and when she got hurt and she had to go to the hospital and her mother was there. It's a very personal song, but it's a very ethereal song musically, with the guitar, the violin, mainly the violin and piano. It's like a ghost-like song, but it is so beautiful. And you kind of think the whole album is going to be like that. The whole album is going to sound like that. But then the second song, which is probably my favorite, Sadness as a Gift, comes in. It almost starts like that, a little bit of that ethereal sound, and it breaks wide open. It reminded me an oral version of The Wizard of Oz when it goes from black and white to color, or some of those movies that are, television 3x4, 4x3, what aspect ratio, and opens wide all of a sudden to CinemaScope. I'm forgetting a film like that, but there's been several films historically that have that start like this, open up like this, and that's what this album is. That song, Sadness is a Gift, has one of the best hooks, guitar, violin, vocals, and piano. It's so beautiful. This is a perfect record. This is my favorite record of 2024. I need to go back and get her entire career. Now, it's an intimate record. Sometimes it's a quiet record. There's no drums. There's no bass. It's not in your face. But it's an emotional record too. And her singing, she's got a beautiful voice, in a little like a Gillian Welch type in that form. If you take an Emmylou Harris and strip it back, everything, it could be a little like that. But she has her own unique thing. And now that I've heard two of her other albums so far prior to this, which are really good, this one is the one that solidifies, to me, her sound, her songwriting, her intention as an artist. Within this is a little card poster. Cowboy Hat. The musicianship, the intimacy, the beauty. Wonderful record. The final song is called Ruined. Donut Seam has a little bit of a sense of humor. I think you need to experience this album yourself. But again, you need to let it grow. You need to let it envelop you. Put it on when you're doing nothing else. Maybe at night, maybe a Sunday morning. It's that type of record. Although on a beautiful sunny day here when we hit almost 90 degrees a couple weeks ago, I played this really loud with all the windows open. And it was one of the most joyous experience I've had in a long time listening to a record. Adrienne Lenker's album, Bright Future. It's on 4AD Records. Member of Big Thief. Her last record, the last Big Thief record of 2 years ago, was one of my favorites of the year. Very new to me, Big Thief and Adrienne Lenker. I've had literally 3, 4, 5 separate friends of mine who knew about Big Thief and her turn me on, and I kind of I didn't resist. I just never went there. I don't know if you're the same way. Sometimes people and friends and viewers now they'll suggest you, oh Mazzy, if you like this, you got to check this. I don't always do that, but for some reason, I kept hearing about this. I put it on, and I was gobsmacked. It's the most beautiful record of the year. And having said that, these are two completely different records. They couldn't be opposite records. And they're both wonderful records with cowboy hats on the cover. They're the most, these are the two best albums for me personally of the year. Popular records, critics' darling, selling well in a certain, obviously selling stratospherically. This record, it's unfortunate that they had to kind of tease with the smaller version. I don't know if it was time and printing and ready, but get ready, get your shit together and put it out like this first. It's still a 2-record set, but you got the book, and the book, the 2-record set, the poster, a beautiful set. I highly recommend this if you're a Beyonce fan, and even if you're not a Beyonce fan. I think this could turn other people on to her stuff. You still have the soulful hip hop DNA here, but you have beautiful country music. And she was brought up, in that whole thing too. So it's not something she just jumped on a country trend at all. She's been a fan, and it's great to have these more traditional country artists supporting her on this. Again, beautiful vocals, beautiful musicianship, beautiful production. With a cast of thousands. And this intimate 3, 4 people, a small group, a fantastic record. Adrienne Lenker, Bright Future, not only the best album of the year, but the best cowboy album on the cover in 2024. Thanks for watching. Mazzy loves you.